Good morning. The topic I am going to touch upon today is dealing with three major French feminists: Helen Siku, Louise Irigaray, and Julia Kristeva. Julia Kristeva made a very significant contribution towards uplifting women by saying that she is not an object. In her books, Powers and Horrors, Revolution in Language, Poetics, and others, she has emphatically said that this interaction between the symbolic and the semiotic cannot happen without the pre symbolic energies, and women is capable of having those. So, Julia Kristeva retrieves women from the position of object and brings her to a heterogeneous signifying object. She says that woman is not just filth, she is not just blood, she is heterological significance, and a woman's filth, excreta, blood, gesture, rhythm, they are all significant. They communicate, and therefore the woman is not just a unified object, rather she is a heterological significant unit. The patriarchy pushed women to a situation of object and reduced her to non-significance, and therefore women's situation continued to be on the margins. It is from this margins that Kristeva restores women's language. In fact, she asks a question: can women have their own language? Can they have? All French feminists are conscious of this, that women should have their own language, and in fact, a woman should have her own God. Following Kristeva, and this Revolution in Poetics, for example, was a exemplary book, and Powers and Horrors, Kristeva, then The Black Sun. Kristeva talks about women and her pain and her trauma and how women deal with that. The women do not give up. Rather, the libidinal resistive energy in women is never completely subdued. It is revolutionary, and this revolutionary energy refuses to be depolarized completely. Louise Irigaray, in her very important essay, Gesture in Psychoanalysis, where she responds to Freud's theory that a girl child grows up in deficit, whereas the boy child is in a surplus. Now, Freud had observed his own grandson playing with the penis, and he felt that the girl child misses that penis, the sexual object, and therefore has a complex. Irigaray very severely criticizes Freud, and she says that the journey of the girl child and the boy are very different. Both grow up very differently. While the boy manipulates the absence of his mother by fondling the penis, the girl child establishes a solidarity with the mother. In her absence, she plays with dolls, or she knits and does embroidery. So the journey is very different. Irigaray says that the opening of the lips of a woman are equal to the opening of the mandalas, the cosmic mandalas. So the energy of a woman is equally cosmic. Her language is different. The woman's language is not the same as a man. Hers is an unidealized language. And a woman responds in gesture rather than her gesture, her silence. A woman is able to communicate through these. This is one of the very significant point that Irigaray makes. Helen Siko, on the other hand, in her very important work, Sorties, is saying that there is no binary division between men and women. There is a bisexuality. And women have this heterosexual energy. They are able to transgress boundaries. They are able to transgress all edibles. And the reason for this is that the woman is able to give without calculation. Hers is an unappropriated energy, unedibilized energy. That does not come from any kind of capitalist economy. Siko says that the woman's rising is diffusionary, whereas the man's erection is singular. Women has multiple points in her body of arousal, whereas the man has been limited by the capitalist economy. So therefore, the very ability of women to give birth to a child equals her to the creator. The woman sways, traverses, sings, and even her silences. They are all mediated by her multiple energies. And therefore, she is not a singular or a unified unit. Many examples can be found in literature of writers exploring this multi-dimensional, multi-mediated energy. And as a student of Dostoevsky, I am reminded of Grushenka in The Brothers Karamazov, other characters as well, and the idiot and the possessed, where, and even Crime and Punishment. For example, in Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky deposits multi-signifieds to the sign of Sonia. Sonia is not just a prostitute, she is also a Christ-like figure. It is to her that Raskolnikov bows. It is from hers, he takes energy from her to save himself. Similarly, Grushenka is a highly mediated sign. She possesses that hyper energy where she is on the brink of madness. She moves from one man to another, but never fully giving up. Every time she is the capitalist system or the patriarchy tries to control her, tries to idealize her, she resists that. And ultimately she tells Dmitri that I will follow you to Siberia. I will be with you. She chooses that, not any monetary concessions. I am reminded of Flaubert's Madame Bovary. Many critics and many readers sometimes think, and especially when the book was released in France, it was termed as pornographic. Now, Emma is not a pervert. Emma is a woman of excess. Unfortunately, the men she has in her life, that includes her husband, turn out to be mediocre. No man fulfills her because she remains unfulfilled. It is in the course of the novel, it is shown that she burns the wedding ring the very first night, because she feels that she has not found the man and he has not been able to take her to that ecstasy and bliss which she wanted to experience. When Emma is in love, she blooms. She radiates, and she wants the best in life, and she goes on to spend, borrow money even to give herself a better life that her husband cannot provide. Though that is a different discussion, whether what impact the bourgeois class has on her. But ultimately, both the men, Rudolph and Ivan, they badly fail her when she needs them, and Emma is forced to commit suicide. I have another character in my mind. Even in Punjabi literature, there are various characters, and there is Piro. Piro is an opposite to Emma. She is forced to Oedipalization. She is forced to patriarchal surrender, because she cannot get out of that situation where India has been divided into Pakistan and India, and she is a Brahmin girl married to a Muslim, and therefore Piro in Pinjar struggles to find that Jusa which Kristiva talks of, whereas Emma momentarily does find that Jusa. Grushenka finds that Jusa, which is the celebrative energy that women possess. So there are many characters in literature, and in real life too. Some women do pursue their own Jusa, and they lead the lives they want to lead. For them, one moment, as Donna Haraway says in her cyborg manifesto, that woman is a heteroglossal. So she is cyborg in the sense that she is machine as well as human. This she says in the context of multinational capitalism, that the woman is able to take multiple positions. So she is heteroglossal, she transgresses boundaries, her language is different, and she is able to traverse limits. So this understanding of women in singular, in a restricted way, is very limited. In Shri Guru Granth Sahib, Guru Nanak Dev Ji has paid the highest compliment to a woman in Barama. For example, he says that a woman who is sitting on the bridal bed and waiting for her Krant, her Pritam, possesses those multiple libidinal energies, and she is waiting in that Tevra energy, with those Tevra energies, and waiting for her Kant. In all this passion, she is ready to abandon herself. And anybody who wants to achieve the sacred will have to possess these multiple energies, capable of complete surrender, capable of complete abandonment, to possess the sacred, whether that sacred is your God or your lover. Thank you.